The Norse had a word, vila, that meant rest, but carried the weight of a warrior's right. Not a collapse, not a reward for the weak, a deliberate return to readiness. Somewhere between Seneca and Silicon Valley, rest became something men had to justify, something to apologize for, something to earn by suffering enough first. The culture that tells you to sleep when you're dead has produced the most physically present and mentally absent men in recorded history. Men who are always available and never recovered, always moving and never arriving anywhere. The men who raided Iceland, Greenland, and the coast of North America, who navigated by stars across the North Atlantic in open boats, understood something about rest that the modern productivity gospel has buried. Rest was not the opposite of strength, it was its condition. The Norse rating calendar was not driven by greed alone, it was organized around recovery. The winter months, Vetter, were not downtime. They were the season of repair, ships, weapons, bodies, alliances. The men who arrived in spring were not the men who had worked hardest through winter. They were the men who had recovered most completely. Seneca wrote in his letters, "The mind must be given some time to itself. Constantly driven, it breaks. It needs to return to itself, to gather its thoughts, to restore itself." He wrote this not as an indulgence, but as a strategic necessity. Seneca managed one of the most demanding intellectual and political careers in Roman history. He did not rest despite this. He rested because of it. Marcus Aurelius, governing an empire at war on multiple fronts, wrote his meditations in the evening, not as a productivity exercise, but as a deliberate withdrawal from the demands of the day. He understood that the quality of tomorrow's decisions depended on the quality of tonight's recovery. There are 4 principles: ancient, practical, each one the opposite of what hustle culture has told you to believe. The 4th principle is the one that most men in the self-improvement space have never encountered. It is not about sleep, it is not about recovery. It is the form of rest that the Stoics considered the highest discipline and the one that requires the most courage. Principle 1. Rest is scheduled, not earned. The Viking gentleman does not rest when the work is done. He schedules rest the way the Norse scheduled the winter, as a non-negotiable part of the cycle. The hustle culture premise is that rest is earned, that you deserve a break after you've achieved enough. This premise has no logical endpoint, which is why the men who live by it are never finished and never rested. The Norse premise was different. The raiding season ended not because the warriors were depleted, but because the cycle demanded it. Rest was not the conclusion of effort. It was the foundation of the next effort. You do not finish the race and then rest. You rest so that the race is worth running. Schedule your recovery the way you schedule your work. Not as a reward and not as a concession, as a non-negotiable strategic period in which you are preparing for what comes next. The man who has not built this into his week is a man who is slowly reducing his capacity while believing he is increasing it. The Viking gentleman doesn't earn rest. He schedules it like a war council. Principle 2. Recovery is specific, not general. Not all rest is recovery. The Norse understood the difference between stillness that restores and inactivity that merely postpones exhaustion. Watching 4 hours of algorithmically curated content is not rest. It is a different kind of demand, on attention, on emotional response, on the nervous system that processes every image and sound. The body is still, the mind is not. The Norse winter was not passive. It was active in a different register: craft, storytelling, maintenance, the slow work of things that required patience rather than urgency. This is restorative rest, engagement that operates below the threshold of depletion. Identify what actually restores you, not what entertains you, not what distracts you, what leaves you more capable tomorrow than you were today. For most men, this involves some combination of nature, physical movement at low intensity, skilled craft without deadline, genuine conversation without agenda, and silence. These are not hobbies, they are maintenance. A ship that is not maintained does not complete the next voyage. Not all stillness is rest. Know the difference. Principle 3. The mead hall was not optional. Brotherhood rest. The deliberate gathering that the Norse made a structural part of their recovery cycle, not a social luxury, a strategic necessity. The mead hall was not where Vikings went to celebrate. It was where they went to recover together. The sharing of the evening meal, the telling of stories, the acknowledgement of what had been done, these were not social niceties. They were the psychological infrastructure of men who would need to function as a coordinated unit the next day. Modern men recover in isolation. Headphones in, screen on, door closed. This is efficient, and it is insufficient. The kind of recovery that the mead hall provided, being genuinely known by other people, having your efforts witnessed, belonging to something, cannot be replicated alone. Build your equivalent, not a performance of social life, a genuine gathering with men you trust, where nothing is being sold or evaluated, where the conversation is real and the company is enough. This is not soft. The greatest fighting forces in history, Viking, Roman, Spartan, all understood that collective recovery is tactical. The mead hall was not a reward, it was infrastructure. Principle 4. The highest rest is mental withdrawal, the rehook payoff, the form of rest that requires the most courage and that most men in the self-improvement space have never encountered. Seneca wrote about odium, a Latin concept with no clean modern translation, often rendered as leisure. It is more precisely the practice of deliberately withdrawing the mind from all external demand, not rest from work, rest from the pressure to be productive even while resting. The man who can sit in a room with nothing to do and feel no anxiety, who does not reach for his phone, does not make a list, does not plan his next move, is a man with extraordinary command of his own interior. The Stoics considered this the highest form of self-governance, more difficult than controlling anger, more difficult than maintaining discipline, because the anxious, driven man who cannot be still is not in control. He is being chased by the pressure to produce, by the fear of irrelevance, by the hustle culture that has taught him that stillness is waste. Practice 10 minutes of complete mental withdrawal, not meditation with a technique, simply sitting without purpose. No goal, no outcome, no improvement. This is the most countercultural act in this entire series, and the one with the deepest return. The man who cannot be still is not at rest. He is being chased. Vila. The Norse did not require you to deserve rest. They required you to understand it, to schedule it, to be specific about what it actually does, to take it in community and, in its highest form, to practice the discipline of doing nothing at all. The hustle culture that has told you rest is for the weak has produced weak men, not because they rested too much, but because they never understood what rest was for. The man who recovers completely is the man who performs completely. Every time. Not despite the rest. Because of it. The forge never stops, neither do you.